Do you own or manage an LLC? Well, this video is for you because we're going to be talking about 5 things that most limited liability companies need. Stick around. Hey out there, welcome back to Wedding Industry Law. My name is Rob. I am an attorney representing wedding industry professionals. This channel is all about video and content related to keeping your wedding business legal. We talk about contracts, talk about dispute resolution, trademarks, and everything in between. So if you enjoy what you're seeing, what you're listening to, please be sure to like and subscribe. There is new content out every week. So we're going to be talking today about 5 things that your LLC needs. And I'm putting needs in quotation marks because depending on your jurisdiction, you might need it or you might not need it. But at the end of the day, regardless of what jurisdiction you're in, these are things that you would strongly be encouraged to think about or to execute. So here we go. The 5 things that your LLC may need.
Number 1.
First things first, an operating agreement. Now, again, there are going to be some jurisdictions that don't require your LLC to have an operating agreement, but even if you're not in one of those jurisdictions, or even if you are in one of those jurisdictions, it is highly recommended that you have an operating agreement. An operating agreement is simply the game plan for how the LLC will be run, whether it's taking on new investments, new capital, adding members, having managers, what the managers can do, what they cannot do, dissolving the LLC once it's done running its course, all things related to the operations of the LLC is boiled down to that operating agreement. So definitely if you've got more than one owner of an LLC, have an operating agreement. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's super critical that you do. But even if you're a single member LLC, and I've talked about this in other videos, and we'll put the link in the description below about the advantages to having an operating agreement, even if you're a single member LLC. But that's the first thing. That's the right off the bat, number 1, having an operating agreement that outlines how the LLC will operate.
Number 2.
The second thing your LLC needs is really your LLC needs to determine how it will be taxed, what the taxation status will be. And there are essentially going to be 2 options for that. The first option is to essentially be taxed like a person, like a sole proprietor. That is to say that the income will pass through the LLC and be taxed at the individual level on the distributions of the income of the actual owner of the LLC. The other option is to be taxed as an S corp, kind of more similar to how corporations are taxed, which is kind of like double taxation. Taxation occurs at the LLC level, but then also the owners are taxed at the distribution at the personal level. So the LLC needs to think about, in conjunction with the advice of the CPA or the accountant, along with the attorney, how that the LLC will be taxed. And there are going to be different advantages and disadvantages for each one of those, mostly depending on how much money is being made, so to speak. So that is definitely a need that you're going to want to address probably sooner rather than later. So the third need for your LLC is going to be liability insurance. Now, again, this is not going to be something that is going to be required in most jurisdictions. It's not like a law that says you got to have this stuff. However, depending on what you do within the wedding industry, for example, calligraphy versus operating a venue, whether or not to get insurance and how much insurance to get, it's going to be super important. So a wedding venue, for example, I'm not going to say you have to have it, but you got to have it. I mean, like, because you're at a high amount of risk for things like physical injury. If somebody slips and falls on your venue property, that could potentially be a lawsuit that could shut you down. So that's why liability insurance, the insurance that protects you from people suing you for physical injury, is going to be super important. So the insurance itself is going to typically insure the LLC. So that way, when somebody does fall on the property, they're suing the LLC, that insurance that covers the LLC kicks in, pays out whatever the claim is. So liability insurance, definitely something that you need depending on the level of risk that you have within the industry.
Number 4.
The fourth thing is kind of a twofer. They both deal with the formalities of having an LLC. And the first one is articles of organization. Your LLC needs articles of organization. Almost every jurisdiction. In fact, I don't know of any jurisdiction that isn't not a requirement, but you have to have articles of organization. They typically get filed with the Secretary of State. The articles of organization typically just tell the world your name, your address, who's the responsible party for receiving lawsuits, this type of thing. Just the basic 6 or 7 things, bits of information that the world needs to know about you as an LLC. That's the articles of organization. So you're going to have that. The second thing I mentioned within this fourth need of the LLC is going to be member meetings. So almost always, depending on your operating agreement, depending on your jurisdiction, the member owners of the LLC are going to need to meet typically on an annual basis. Again, it depends on your operating agreement, depends on potentially your jurisdiction, in order to keep up the formality of having an LLC. So you can't just pay the $50, have an LLC, and be done with it and have the protections of the law behind you. You actually have to move forward with the formalities of having an LLC, that is, having a business that is distinct from you as a person. And again, one of the ways that we do that is having articles of organization that says those things. But the other thing is actually doing what you're supposed to do under the agreement or the operating agreement that you have. And most of those is that you have the member owners have to meet on some type of regular basis. So you actually need to do that. And again, the reason why you do that is because you don't want to have somebody sue your LLC and then pierce the corporate veil, meaning get to your personal assets, because the LLC is really a farce. You keep the LLC strong. You prevent people from saying it's a farce by doing these formal things: member meetings, articles of organization.
Number 5.
And the fifth thing goes along with these formalities of having an LLC, and that is have a bank account. And why is that important? Why can't you just have one PayPal account that's your personal stuff that you buy your Beanie Babies on and also send out invoices on? The reason why is because you're intermingling funds. And when you intermingle your personal funds with your business funds, it's going to make it easier for somebody to, when they sue you, to not only get the assets of your business, they'll get your personal assets as well. They'll pierce that corporate veil. So to build or strengthen the corporate veil, to build the wall around our personal stuff and our business stuff, is to have a separate business bank account. That is critical. That is threshold stuff. You got to do it because it's so simple, and it's one of the strongest bricks that we have to build our little house, to protect us from, or protect our personal stuff from our business stuff. Have a separate bank account that you actually use as a separate bank account, and do those formal things that separate the LLC from our personal stuff. So that's the 5 things that your LLC needs to basically keep it legal. I hope that you found the content of this video enjoyable. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe. New videos just like this every Monday. And with that, folks, we'll see you next time.